With one-click orders and 2-day shipping, how do companies align with these new customer expectations while also considering sustainability? Patagonia is using demarketing to discourage people from buying their products and raising awareness about the environmental impact of shopping habits. IKEA is offering buyback programs where customers can return used items for store credit. Sustainability needs to remain front and center for e-commerce brands, but can businesses find ways to both save money and also aid in saving the planet? Can companies pursue sustainability and meet customer needs without creating friction? What are your thoughts?
What a question, because in short, I don't think so.
I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible either, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be trying.
Right, exactly.
I think when you said pursue, yes. Hopefully one day. Like that's the goal. We're all shooting
without
towards
friction?
Yeah. Pause.
Maybe not. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not.
I think with any of these efforts, there's a trade-off. There's like the cost aspect.
Yep.
There's other, like their revenue impacts as well. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do them.
Yeah. In a perfect world, like we would be able to be as sustainable as possible. But if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
And
exactly.
I think that that's the hardest part about this conversation is that some brands are making a dent. Some brands are making an impact. And that's why people choose them and choose to shop with them. I think it's definitely a part of consumers' consideration points. But then again, they care about fast shipping and they care about, making sure that they get a really quality experience. So when brands are doing it well, it's always exciting and you're kind of like, okay, should we be doing that too? I think today we're going to talk about just some ways that you can do that, but also keep your consumer in mind and be on the forefront of sustainability.
And keeping the climate and the planet also in mind.
The goal, the ultimate goal. Well, I thought too, what was interesting is that sustainability is now, it went from like being a niche concern to now a core business strategy. A lot of brands are actually working it into their strategy. And prior, it might have been a box to check off, but now we're ultimately like trying to turn what is waste into profit and understanding, the circular economy and understanding how you can put stuff out and make sure that it doesn't go to waste.
Right.
I think those are key. And a couple examples that we found doing research for this episode were IKEA and Patagonia offering buyback programs, which is great, where customers can return used items for actual store credit.
Yeah.
But they also, Patagonia, I thought was cool. They actually utilize demarketing. So they kind of discourage people from buying their product to raise awareness about the environmental impact of shopping, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Any brands you have in mind that do a good job with this?
Yeah, I think a brand that definitely comes to mind is Levi's, for example.
Oh, yeah.
So they actually encourage consumers to, wear their jeans longer. They actually, they say they look better if the longer you wear them.
True.
I think that's a really cool value prop because it goes beyond profit to thinking about sustainability more.
Well, I think they're really intentional with their messaging too, because like their headline was like, wear longer, look better.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is really cool. And they're actually making impacts with their marketing messaging and kind of making sure that their money is where their mouth is. Right.
I love when I see brands take a stance.
It's such a win.
And we also can't underestimate the role of technology in sustainability. True. There's been so many innovations that have happened that have really helped with sustainable practices. One of those, for example, I worked for a retailer that was exploring Kiva robots. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but basically around this warehouse, you would see like robots. They would take the order, go fill it, bring it back. There's just like, that's a really cool initiative and helping to reduce some of that waste. So,
interesting. I'm sure we're going to see. I know we're going to see, and we're always learning from each other on the show. But I think that we're going to see more of that and more technology being leveraged.
Definitely. It's definitely playing a role. And then also, AI, machine learning, really optimizing the resource use and really helping to predict demand more accurately and minimizing the waste as well. I think if we can't talk about sustainability and e-commerce without talking about returns.
Yes.
And I'm actually seeing brands taking the stance on returnless refunds. So don't send us back the item, but we're still going to refund you. And I think that that is an example of a sustainable practice and really taking a stance there. And let's not also forget about big data. It allows companies to understand consumer behavior at that more granular level and really personalize that experience. I talked about returns. One of the things that I've seen on Amazon is that they will tell you products that have a high return rate.
Oh,
that's going to, if you see products that have a high return rate, that might prevent you from purchasing it in the first place, because then, you get it and you realize, oh, this isn't the vibe. I'm going to return it. Now you're contributing to that,
exactly.
Additional waste. So.
Well, and as a consumer, you don't want to be contributing to that. Like, that's not top of mind. And I think you want to do your best in terms of purchasing and returning. And honestly, the inconvenience of having to return an item plagues me to no end. I absolutely hate it. I will keep an item. Even if it doesn't fit, I will call it an L. Like, that is just me through and through. But when brands
I definitely do that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not the only one. I'm just like, I call it a loss and I just keep it pushing. I'm like, RIP to my money.
Which I think that also we all say that I think sustainability is kind of controversial in that way, because we all want to be sustainable, we recycle, we're doing the right thing, but we also buy fast fashion. And we've talked about the Gen Z, for example, a generation that is very more likely to be sustainable and care about sustainable practices, but also shopping fast fashion
or Shein.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, they were known as the most disruptive generation ever. Bank of America said that. But I feel like we're complicated. We've talked about the consumer being really complicated.
It is.
And I think saying you care about sustainability, but also not wanting to sacrifice on price or not sacrifice on price or delivery times, etc.
Yeah.
I did see a stat that says sustainability is an established consumer priority, and 85% of customers have adopted more sustainable behaviors, and 45% expect sustainability as a given.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I think we all want to be there.
Right.
So it's very aspirational.
Right.
Almost.
I completely agree. When I think about sustainability and a brand's stance on this, is your value prop is your brand promise. So if you say that we're going to take a stance on sustainability, that becomes a part of your brand promise, and people expect that from you.
Yeah.
They're holding you to that higher standard. And I think in that the same study that you referenced with McKinsey, I saw that 68% will pay a premium for sustainable products in at least one category. So
interesting.
That also goes back to people are willing to pay more for a more sustainable product, more sustainable practices happening within the business.
Yeah, I see people are actually seeking out though and engaging in content online that kind of drive this piece. They aren't passive in terms of what they're trying to buy. They're finding the right brands who have that in their messaging, who have that in their promise.
Right.
And it's if you're picking one over the other and that's a core differentiator for you, you're going to go with one that is making better brand decisions on that front. So it's just, consumers are weird, and I feel like we're constantly in I'm contradictory myself.
We're just complicated.
We're complicated people. I know it's not as easy as you'd think, but I think that's why brands are struggling with it, because one day we're really caring about sustainability, and the next day they're like, I just need something cheap, and I don't care if I have to throw it away afterwards, which is bad.
And it feels like it's moment to moment. So for example, Amazon, if you're checking out with Amazon and I purchase a lot of things, I have pending orders and then I'm placing new orders, they will say, do you want to receive this item later? So we could box them together.
Yeah.
It literally depends on the moment. Yes, I care about sustainability, but if you need that item, will you compromise your values to do so? And that's why it's so controversial.
I know. And I think sometimes brands can't really win because you can't predict sometimes. And I think you just got to give people the option. I think when you talk about collecting data and understanding what people are choosing, maybe giving people an option to choose sustainable packaging for a $5 extra or whatever the case might be, and see how many people actually take you up on that.
Yeah.
And maybe you can see where consumers actually lie, because I think everybody says that they want to be sustainable, but when it comes to money and dollars spent, that's where it could go either way. So kind of collecting that data, making those data-driven decisions, and kind of determining how important it needs to be in your strategy.
How you optimize your strategy to adapt to that. Yep.
Well, I think too, like, sustainability is kind of a key differentiator. I think brands stand out when they make it a big part of their messaging, and brands that can kind of authentically align with eco-conscious values are really gaining an edge, would you say?
Right. I completely agree, especially as we think about being more eco-friendly and doing what's right for the environment. You can definitely see that coming out with brands.
Investors are also paying attention too. So strong sustainability practices are seen as a lower risk and more future-proof, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And if you're being more conscious on that front, I mean, if you think about IPOs, even though they've been more rare the past 2 years, ESG is definitely a factor in that. That's something that we even collect on the Bloomreach side. Yeah. Because if we ever go public, you just never know. Like, that is something that is really valuable for people. And you have to have significant benchmarks, and you have to have significant examples of how you're actually striving to meet that goal.
Right.
It can't just be all talk.
Right.
Because I think people can see right through that. And you have to stand on business.
Right. Yeah. It's literally not just like talking to talk, but actually walking the walk when it comes to it.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the trade-offs for customers. Customers care about sustainability, but waiting 2 weeks for a product to arrive just does not
sit
well. It's definitely not the vibe. So let's talk about some ideas, some tips for brands as you think about like what are the trade-offs and how do you adapt your strategy? And one of those that come to mind for me is the shift to carbon neutral shipping. According to a 2023 report by Shopify, over 50% of consumers are more likely to choose a retailer that offers carbon neutral shipping options. Additionally, Shopify noted that the adoption of carbon neutral shipping has increased among e-commerce companies, with more than 10,000 merchants participating in their Shopify Sustainability Fund program, which offsets carbon emissions through investments in renewable energy and reforestation of projects. So I think that's really cool. And Shopify is a partner of ours. So it's really cool to see that they have this initiative and they're taking this stance.
Totally. And I think, too, we saw in a study, 72% of customers said that they would pay extra for that sustainable packaging. So I think my favorite example of this is kind of the creative packaging from a sustainability standpoint is Lush Cosmetics. Have you heard of them?
Lush.
They have a little store in South Park.
Store, but I miss it.
Yeah, no, it's super cute. Like every time I'm at the mall, South Park, shout out. But they always bring me in, draw me in, but their sustainable packaging, they've been focused on that for years. But one of their most notable initiatives is the use of naked products, which are sold without any package at all. So shampoo bars, conditioners, body lotions, etc. And so for products that do require packaging, they use 100% post-consumer recycled plastic.
Oh, that's cool.
So they encourage customers to return their empty pots to stores through their Bring It Back program.
Yeah.
So consumers can exchange a set number of empty pots for free products. And it's just another example of that circular economy at work.
Absolutely.
And I feel like anytime a brand is conscious about that, like, it's not easy to bring something back, but if you do care about this, we make it happen for you.
Right.
So I love that they went above and beyond to make that a part of their mission.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's almost like seamless too. I think that when we think about sustainability, you may be thinking like, oh, we need to take this approach. It needs to be everywhere on our homepage. It needs to in our emails.
Yep.
But really, it's more like this seamless experience, and it's just ingrained in everything that you do. And you're not even just thinking about, oh, what's our packaging look like, but it's embedded in your complete strategy
and operations too, and how you bring products to market, et cetera.
Exactly. It's embedded in all that you do. So what consumers don't want? They don't want extended delivery times, especially for low value items. So customers, they don't want to feel like they're being overcharged for those low value items. So like, how do we adapt our strategy to make sure that they see the value in what we're providing? So if you're paying more, it should be clear what the added value is, whether it's better material, ethical sourcing, or innovative waste reducing packaging. If the value isn't apparent, they'll feel more like they're being greenwashed, that they're not making a responsible choice. And I think that's like the hard part of what brands are balancing between trying to take this stance, knowing that sustainability is not a cheap mission.
No.
And also having customers see the value in all of that. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think if there's anything that millennials and Gen Z are good at, it's sniffing out when brands are greenwashing you and are being fake about it. I feel like it is very popular to say you're on the sustainability train, and it's another thing to actually be on it.
Right.
So I think I can definitely say from an extended delivery time piece, like that's a major frustration. And I think we've talked about speed and convenience being a priority, but I mean, even when you're opting for sustainable choices. So the ideal world, you would have both.
Right.
I know that it's crucial for businesses to understand that the demand for fast delivery doesn't diminish that consumers actually seek that eco-friendly option. So that's why my idea was like, give them an option, like give them a choice at the end of checkout. I mean, it's another thing that they have to pick at the end of the day. But I think seeing what the data will tell you, people will make those decisions, whether it's a game time decision, whether it's a core values decision, you'll know. And I think you can make decisions based on that. But having the option, I think it's
the flexibility to choose.
Yes. Yeah. It is our right to choose.
Yeah. And I don't think that, so like I've said this before, but price is not the only factor in making a purchase decision. If your brand is premium and you have sustainable practices and you charge a premium for that, then that's okay. That's okay to make it known and people can decide what they want to do. But you shouldn't sacrifice on the brand promise in order to, maybe appeal to the masses. If you're marketing to everyone,
you're marketing to no one.
Exactly.
I love that. We're locked in.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about the dark side of e-commerce too. Returns are a big issue when it comes to sustainability. And there has been a challenge and I saw a study recently that said the average e-commerce return rate sits between 20 and 30%, which is really high.
It's really high.
Versus like brick and mortar stores.
Right.
So I think maybe people are thinking it's convenient to return, but at the end of the day, you're contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
So I think I saw the $816 billion lost in sales in 2022, almost twice the cost of returns in 2020. So as the returns process evolves, like that's transportation, that's packaging, and that's 24 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions in 2022.
Wow.
Which is just like mind blowing.
Right.
And you don't think about those numbers when you're making those returns.
Right.
We talked about this, but I count it as an L. Like I don't want them to have to go through all of that. Like,
right.
That's almost like my gift to the planet when I don't return things.
Don't even, I mean, as a consumer, you definitely don't, you're definitely not thinking about this, but I know like businesses are constantly thinking about this. Returns are expensive. They cost us money.
Totally.
I work with a lot of merchants and we're always thinking about like, okay, so how do we optimize those high return items? Do we bury them? Just thinking about like, what is your strategy around like these items are being purchased at a high volume, but they're also contributing to a lot of returns. And I think as merchandisers and as marketers, they're thinking about strategies on how we optimize. And as businesses, if you do have to return, it needs to be accessible. So if you just do like the Whole Foods, Amazon
I was just about to say that. Yes.
Return at return at Whole Foods. You can return at UPS. So just making that return at Kohl's, making it easy for the customer to be able to return those items if they need to. Also just helps. I don't know what your practice looks like after they return it. Where does it go after that? Which that's also the dark side of e-commerce because we know that a lot of returns ends up in landfills. Which
is so sad.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, I also saw that I guess the Wall Street Journal estimated that if a retailer cut returns in half, it would result in 25% increased profit.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which is why those preventative measures, those merchandising, even like just thinking about like how you can use AI for messaging, like I mentioned, Amazon's doing with like this item is highly returned. Maybe there's messaging around like read the reviews, make sure that like you read the description, get your right size, anything that we can do to encourage customers to make sure that you're purchasing the right thing before you check out is ideal.
Well, that goes back to like being intentional about your purchases versus impulse decisions. Because when you're impulsive, you're probably moving through that process way faster than you would if you're like, I really need this. And you're trying to think through all the pros and the cons. Obviously, a lot of brands want you to make decisions quickly, hence the one-click checkout phenomenon that's going on.
Right.
But at the end of the day, to avoid returns, it's kind of like, yes, we're making it easier for you to check out, but also do your due diligence on the front end.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're reading the reviews, make sure you're watching the videos, or whatever the case might be. And I love that you mentioned the messaging a couple of times because that's so important. And you don't think that that would make sense because you don't want to like discourage people to buy your product, but
you want to encourage them to buy the right thing.
Yes. And be intentional. Buy your right size. Make sure that this doesn't come back to us.
Yeah.
Please
exactly.
and thank you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So speaking of technology and AI, how do you think that that's going to impact sustainability, returns, et cetera? What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, so I think AI can help to identify what those heavy returners are and maybe strategically exclude those from your targeting efforts. So you definitely don't want to target customers with something that has a high return rate, but also AI can sort of guide you and be your personal shopper. Clarity, for example, which is a Bloomreach product, which is a guided selling, will literally help guide you through the shopping experience, making sure that you're purchasing the right thing, that it meets your needs, it meets your expectations. It's going to serve, whatever purpose that you're looking to accomplish. So it goes beyond just like, here's like a comparison guide, here's a sizing chart, but it's really that like guided selling. It's almost like that concierge in store, which is really cool. And that's
without being annoying.
Yeah, exactly. It's your shopping buddy. And that's really what I see, how I see AI helping to impact the returns and making sure that customers are getting what they need the right time.
We also have a full episode on conversational commerce and really how brands can lean into it and really what it's going to look like as we roll it out. So if you're interested in that, we talked to the VP of product and he talks all about it. So definitely give that a shot. You can dive a little deeper there.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's an opportunity to meet in the middle. And in terms of your initial question of can we meet customers' needs and expectations from a sustainability practice?
Right.
So we have some tips and we kind of wanted to summarize them here.
Right.
Where do we want to start?
Yeah, so I would start with optimizing product discovery. And, we're experts in product discovery. So this is definitely an area that we can guide you on. But one, getting the right product to the right person at the right time and making sure they're making that informed buying decision first and foremost. And like I mentioned, think about the work that we're doing with Clarity, which leverages AI to aid in product discovery. And if you do this right, it's going to reduce returns. And also just thinking about the some things you might consider as a retailer is donating, reselling. So with reselling, we there's some examples that you had around like ThredUp or Poshmark, those examples of like you're not just returning the item, you're reselling it as a...
Well, it's a great way for you to make additional money as a consumer as well. So why not leverage those tools? And they're making it so easy, like on an app, like you just flip an item. Yeah. My friend does this so well. She buys designer items. Like she has an eye for a designer item that she knows will go crazy on the resale market. And she'll get it, wear it a few times, keep it, let it increase in value, and then resell it off the back end. And I think that's so smart because it's still, the value continues on and it can go to a different owner and it never goes to waste.
I love that. It's giving products a second life.
Exactly. And I think brands who are smart, it's smart for brands to partner with apps and resources like that because it's also like benefiting you too to minimize returns.
And we didn't talk about the different product types, but also it's depending on your strategy, you have to adapt differently to returns. Like a mattress is different than returning like a t-shirt. Returns are friction. They create friction in a shopping journey. Nobody really wants to return anything. But when you have this big ticket item, I think I've seen this with Wayfair, but like outdoor furniture, do they really want to roll another truck to pick up that outdoor furniture that you purchase? A lot of times the return in that process, and we talked about the cost involved in it, is more than the price that they sold the product for.
Which is crazy.
And so, that's just another way, those returnless refunds. Now, it's not something you want to advertise, but if someone is in that process of returning something, you say that like, just donate that. We're going to send you another one anyway. Think about like creating that customer lifetime value.
Totally. Because they will continue to come back.
I'm going to keep buying from you.
Oh, yeah. And Wayfair does the best at that. I feel like they do such a great job. I bought a dresser from there. They were like, I lost a part or something. And they're like, oh, just keep it.
Yeah.
Love that.
So if you enjoyed this episode, check us out on LinkedIn. Let us know your thoughts about sustainability and sustainable practices. And also to stay in the know on e-commerce and AI, check out our Edge newsletter. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.